Again, starting with that first question, just your quick elevator pitch, who you are, what your role is, where you're from, and how you or your company organization is leveraging AI right now.
Okay, hello, my name is Art Fuller. I'm from Hamilton Center. We are a mental and behavioral health center. We serve about 13,000 patients throughout the region. And so we're all about basically helping and saving lives. From our end, how we're taking a look at AI is cautiously, because we are managed and governed by this thing called HIPAA. How many of you are familiar with that? HIPAA. So because of that, just when we are looking at AI, especially on an organizational or infrastructure level, the first things we're thinking about, what type of policy do we need to put in place? And then what type of training do we need to provide in order to ensure all of anyone that would be looking at it is trained properly? And so that's where we are.
Thank you.
My name's Darla Moore. I'm from the Garrett Companies, Director of Project Controls. So for me, that means policies, procedures, and software. So at Garrett Companies, we're a vertical, so we have everything from acquisitions, investments, all the way building our multifamily to property management of getting it leased out. So we have a lot of different departments that fall under that umbrella. The timing is great on this because actually on Monday, we have a 2-hour meeting scheduled to go through and talk about AI for each one of those departments. How can we leverage it for marketing? How can we leverage it for property management and construction? So we actually already have a meeting planned to actually dive into how we think we can use it and what governance around it do we need. I'm part of the construction department. The software we use for construction management is Procore, and I'm lucky that Procore has AI built into it now. So they've been developing it themselves. And the great thing with the Procore AI, it's company specific. It doesn't go out, doesn't get anything sensitive out, or doesn't put information in, and it doesn't bring anybody else's policies and procedures in. So Procore's making it very easy for the construction team to delve into it. For us, we're just starting to dive into it a little bit, but I don't see it replacing anybody, but I see it making processes easier of being able to gather information of, what's the faucet should we be installing, and it would go find the information. So, I think that's how construction itself can AI can make a difference for that. And then I'm interesting on Monday to hear how the other departments perceive what AI is going to do and how we can use it.
Great, thank you.
Well, hi, my name's Chris. I'm with Union Health. Gosh, I've been with Union Health right around 11 years. And my role is to find and bring to Union Health just the most talented and excellent people possible. Probably a lot like yourselves. I agree. We've been using AI very cautiously. We're under HIPAA as well. And the idea is to use AI plus HI, which is human intelligence, right? So there is so many creative and practical ways that we look at processes head on and we say, how can we make this more meaningful? With the hospital system, we're the one just right across the way. It kind of looks like an airport. We are the largest employer in the Wabash Valley healthcare system at Indianapolis to St. Louis. And we want to use AI in such a responsible way that we provide the most compassionate healthcare possible for our friends and family.
I'm Kevin Womack. I'm with Thompson Thrift Construction, so we're right across the street, but we build luxury apartments really all over the country. And so we've got a great IT department who's built out a great data source that we can try to plug into AI. And so we're kind of trying to push into the forefront of doing analysis with AI on our data to help drive results. We found it to be a very technical and challenging process. You'd hope it'd be just plug and play, but it's a ton of work. So the easy wins have been research. If I want to go learn about sales tax law in all the states, I can have it at the drop of a finger. Contract review, reading documents, it's great at. Analysis is a lot harder. sometimes it'll break on you. And then automation, that's another area that we're excited about, but just haven't found that's been easy to do yet. So we're pushing into that frontier. That's what the future holds.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen. I'm with Epic Insurance Brokers and Consultants. We're a national, large commercial brokerage firm. We've been in the AI world for a minute now. I'm the managing director of commercial operations for the Midwest. And a lot of what we're doing with AI, we already have tools implemented in our desktop. We have an HR AI bot, it's Ask Scout. So we ask an HR question, it scans, looks at all of our manuals and options. Monday evening, I had our second test of an automated process, whether it's printing a ledger, posting an invoice, and importing it in, assigning it to the person who's supposed to handle it. Those are things that we've already got going on. We have an internal development team, and so a lot of the bot processes, adding a vehicle to a policy, we've automated that. Anything we can do to free up my staff's team to talk with their important clients, consult, advise, develop relationships, that's what we're trying to do. Even the third-party vendors that we work with to do initial policy checking, they've adopted AI at the same time. So one of our contractors that looks at lists and schedules and compares one to the other, we've gone through a new process with them to where they're still having a human look at the results, but they're scanning 2 documents in, and we do a lot of document comparison, number checks, and kind of like, my associate here, we're doing a lot of policy and contract research and negotiation. But again, we're finding that it's not the be all end all. Something that would take us maybe 45 minutes to an hour to research a coverage issue, what policy would respond. We're finding AI will spit something out in 12 minutes, but it's not always right because there's a lot of if, ands, buts, and we're finding AI is very black and white, cut and dried. And those are the things that we're working with it on to how do we combine, a brain with what we get from AI and come out with the best result for our client.
Rachel Kelly, I am the Chief Nursing Officer at Horizon Health. We are a critical access hospital, which means a small rural hospital. We are small but mighty. We offer over 50 different service lines. But I think the important piece of looking at healthcare in general is that we have always been on the cutting edge of innovation and technology. Think back when there was an iron lung and things like that. And so we've always been open and receptive to accept new ways in technology. And I think AI is scary, it's unknown. But I think our focus has to continue to be on the patient, the impact to that. And our job is to protect the patient, but also create ways to use AI that create efficiencies in how they gather their health information. And then also for the staff, what does that do for the staffs connecting with the patient? How does it free up their capacity so that they can do the good job that they do? And so anytime that you can leverage technology in that capacity, it will benefit. And so right now in the healthcare industry, I know the colleagues already shared, it is embedded in our EHRs, which is our electronic health records already. There is already some intelligent software that's built in there. It is already being introduced into, I'll say, equipment like IV pumps that know when something is not right with the patient. And it is already being used in something for transcription. And so we're starting to use that in patient interactions with providers. What we have seen is a hesitancy with providers, but also the public acceptance of AI. And so that has also been challenging as you start to adopt technology like that. You always have some naysayers. So we always have to be mindful with how you approach and adopt technology and also the governance piece, the policies, how we use it. And we can get into it later, but there are state and federal guidelines that dictate in healthcare how you can and cannot use AI. So we'll get into that later. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Mari Swain. I currently serve as the Director of Human Resources for Lawrence Township Schools in Indianapolis. We have a lot of different stakeholders that we are working with when it comes to AI, be it our staff, be it our students, be it our community, our parents. Some are immigrants to technology still, some have always been there. Like I have a 7-year-old, I remember when she was 3, she would take my phone and put it right in front, she wanted a game. So most of you in here that are students, you're already used to a lot of these things. So we have seen AI in a variety of different ways. One that I can witness to as a former principal, I remember when AI first, the buzzwords were coming. And we were having powwows on how are we gonna keep the students from using AI. This is a tragedy, we just cannot, I don't know if it's just what educators do, but it was, you know, they can't use this, they're gonna cheat, they're gonna do this, the world's gonna change, they're not gonna learn. And then the next week, we had a meeting of, it's not going anywhere. Sit down, hold on to your seat, we've gotta learn how to embrace it. And in embracing it, it's important for us to make sure our staff feels comfortable. As I shared with some students we spoke with earlier, we have a lot of generations in education. There's still a few boomers hanging around, and then now we have these Generation Alpha babies who are just starting and, you know, growing. And so there are different levels to it, but if I've got a boomer that's still teaching kindergarten, how do I make her feel comfortable with what her students are already coming to the table with? And so we're really spending a lot of time on professional development, but we have FERPA. We want to make sure that we're not sharing anything that could identify a student, so we're really continuing to teach students how to use it appropriately. And then from an HR lens, we use it a lot to tweak things. Like, I finished my dissertation a couple years ago, and it was like, if I had known about AI, I would be in trouble. Because those tools can turn your words into some beautiful things. But the professors will say, absolutely not, I probably would have never passed through that dissertation. So, you know, it really helps us when we're trying to say a word or a phrase nicely, but you can't say it like that, and legal doesn't like it, and so we have to go back to the table. So we use it a lot to tweak things that we're doing. We run our handbook through it, but as everyone here has said, you still have to go back through and read it, because it's taking everything that it's learned everywhere, and this sounds good, let me throw it in there. Well, that might be good for some, but our board policy says that that's a no-no. And so we're still learning how to engage in it. We know it's not going anywhere, and so our job is just to work with it, learn it, and things come out every day. We've also adopted School AI, which a lot of school districts have utilized, which is a tool that is created that protects the identity of students. And it makes some things consistent, and so we can all work together, whether I'm in Terre Haute and Vigo County, or if I'm in Indianapolis. If we're using those School AI platforms, we know some of the guidelines that are there.
Cool, good, thank you. Okay, so looking at it from a student perspective, through your lens, one, what do you want them, you know, how do you think it's going to impact our students as they graduate and enter the workforce? And two, what would you like to see them coming in with to be prepared for your expectations as, you know, entry-level teachers or, you know, business professionals, healthcare professionals, whatever it may be?
You want me to start? Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and again, this is, now we're at the stage where if you've got something to add, great. No particular order, just raise your hand and we'll go.
Yeah, so I would say at Hamilton Center, you know, we are in mental and behavioral health. And so the skills that we want from students is to really have, first of all, a heart for the community that we're serving. And also understanding, you know, we do have the people we serve, they're using AI, right? And so it's being able to ask those critical questions that need to be asked, and to be able to know that, you know, AI is not going to replace your thinking, right? So we're looking for people who understand how to think and how to look at a situation and see how their best thinking can be brought to bear with, hey, if you're using AI, still keep your thinking cap
Yeah.
on.
Good,
I think
that's
it's
a great point.
I think it's important to think of it as an augmentation tool as well, to use it to make things efficient and to provide more clarity, and I think it will make critical thinking even more robust. I think it will facilitate better decision-making, faster decision-making, and I think embracing it is what's making everyone nervous, but I do think it's gonna be a great tool. We do recognize the fact that students are coming in already with this knowledge, but to your point, we have a workforce out there that is resistant to use it, and they're like, no way, you're never gonna get me to use this product. And we're like, come on, it will create work-life balance,
I was gonna
we
say, until they
promise
see
you.
how much it saves them on documentation or something,
Right.
right?
Right, and so we recently went through an exercise with some of our providers, and we do have a system called DAX AI, and it allows them to interact with the patient on the phone. And so they open up the app, they go in, they talk with the patient, it transcribes their entire interaction. It's intuitive enough to pick out the small talk, so it doesn't include that into the electronic health record. By the time they get done with their conversation with the patient, it is already posted. They go out, they confirm, they update, they push that into the patient's EHR, their electronic health record. And within minutes, and sometimes before the patient even leaves the facility, they can log into their patient portal and they see their entire care continuum. They have their plan, they have what they're supposed to do. And so there are benefits to it, but you have to validate. There has to be some human validation. And I loved what you had said about the human intelligence. So that's always coupled with that.
I'd say the hard side of this as a student is a lot of what AI does is automate really entry level kind of, I would have needed someone to go and research something for me for 20 hours, put together a report, research sales tax in 40 states and come back to me. Well, now I can have AI do it. I would have had to review that guy's work. I still need to review the AI's work, and so my role is being sustained, but I'm cutting a lot of this entry level starting work. And so the skills that are gonna be more important now are gonna be having quality to your work, being able to review it, turn in something that is accurate. Anyone now can put together quick work with not a lot of thought. AI can do it for you cheap, but knowing it's right, knowing that you've thought through it and have good quality work, and turning it's gonna be that skill set that's gonna be needed.
You know, as an employer also, just in looking, it's subject matter, knowing your subject matter is gonna be vital. Because if I hire someone and I can tell if they I've seen competitors work where they've spit out an AI report and I take it in 20 minutes, I can pick out what's wrong. Well, this is what this report says, but that's actually not the case. So to have an edge in the marketplace where AI, you have to know your subject matter so you can confirm with confidence what is right and what is wrong. And augment.
Along
like
with this, and
this.
one of our concerns is sometimes you get that knowledge by digging in and taking that 5 hours to go through all this stuff, and that's how they learn, And if we're just gonna give it to them in 5 seconds, they're not going through that learning process when they're on the entry level. And that's one of our concerns is, how do we keep them, gaining that knowledge and not just, this is what it says, okay, this is it, they can't verify, they don't know if it's right or wrong because they haven't done the legwork enough to know that that's the right answer.
Yeah.
So that's part of our concern is just the entry level, just taking that for fact
Absolutely.
and not gaining that knowledge of digging in and going through the drawings and where's it at? And so that is part of our concern with the AI, again, you still have to have that human element, but in the trust and verify.
Right.
But, for us, for entry level, our concern is they're not going to gain the knowledge that they need by doing that digging and doing that, maybe not be 20 hours, but at least it'll be 5 hours, of just learning that instead of getting a 5-minute answer from, your AI and okay, here you go. You know, yeah, granted, the manager's gonna review it and say, no, this isn't right, but they're not gaining that knowledge by digging.
And one additional thing, just for any new hire, whatever, you really need to understand and know what your corporation's policies are related to that. And that's a very important thing because those policies are in place for a reason. And so if you're coming on new, it's very important that you clearly understand how that organization wants you to understand and implement. And especially with the validate and the verify, those are skills, it doesn't matter where you are. If you get great at those two skills, you're gonna go far.
Very good. Chris?
Well, for an entry-level employee, and honestly, for any employee that's gonna be an innovator in the AI space, we want you to come in with strong character. Because if you produce a result, you verify, you do all these things, you adhere to company policy, we want you to be clear that AI helped me, and maybe this particular AI, this company AI, this was my process. So we want you to communicate that, right?
Yeah, and speaking, a lot of you are hitting on something that's one of my big hot buttons about the whole validate, verify and everything. When we talk about AI, even using simplistic examples, one of the biggest mistakes I've seen students make, and I'm sure employees are making them too, because I've heard horror stories coming from employers where somebody puts together this big proposal, but it's like putting together your, PhD thesis and not being able to defend it because you have no idea what's actually in there. And I mean, we see examples of that with resumes and everything else. They go into an interview and we ask them about something that's on their resume that AI helped them with. They have no idea, they had no idea it was even on there, right? So the AI cannot replace your critical thinking. It can enhance your critical thinking and it can improve your efficiencies. But again, if you are one of those people, and I tell students this all the time, if you're one of those people who's gonna let AI do the work for you, then you're right in thinking that AI is gonna take your place. Because I don't need you for that, right? Alright, before we get, I've got some more prepared questions, but I wanna make sure that you folks get to ask our panelists some questions too. So does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask before we continue with some of the others?
I'm actually curious to know what you're gonna share.
She's jumping over
I know, I kept hearing, I was like, what is it?
All I was gonna say was kind of a piggyback of him with the resume. So, for those of us who've been around for a while, we used to put on our resume our skills. I'm proficient in Excel, Microsoft Office Suite, all of those things. Now we wanna see that you also have that same experience perhaps in AI. And I know there's a lot of different majors and careers in here, but there's some tool that's out there that has become the standard or something that you need, or even a basic expectation of that, because what that tells us is that you have a little experience, and then how do you use that ethically, that AI ethically, as well as strategically, because as he just said, if you don't know how to use it correctly, you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb, but if you know how to mix that in with you being still a human, you're gonna be ahead of other people who are afraid of it or haven't been willing to really engage in it. So you've gotta find the right tool that is ethical and you feel good about in the company, because if you use it unethically, you're gonna find yourself out of a job very quickly, because it puts the whole company at risk.
You had a question over here, I believe. Did you?
Yeah, I was just wondering what you was gonna say.
Okay. Anybody, any other questions? Okay, all right, so my next question for you is, what are you doing right now, or what tool are you using, or to leverage AI at a reasonably high level right now? I mean, and it could be something as simple as just how you're using ChatGPT to analyze some of your reports or whatever it might be. But I'd like to know how you're leveraging it within your specific role right now.
So here, one thing that happens a lot right now is companies, they reach out to us, right, about how we have a wonderful AI solution, whatever. So it may seem like a very simple thing, but it's the process of really vetting anyone that's reaching out with some type of magical AI solution.
Yeah.
And really having that conversation about data breach, right? Because if you don't have a good answer to that, you are not ready. You're not ready to enter the type of field that we have to play in.
Understand, yeah.
I think for us, or, you know, in my role as an administrator, we leverage it in looking at it strategically and operationally. What is the impact? And so one of the things that we're staying very close to is something called the One Big Beautiful Bill. And embedded in that big beautiful bill is something called a Rural Health Transformation Plan. Part of that plan has several domains to it, and so we're trying to figure out how do we gain for our patients, and always keeping the patients in the center of what it is that we're looking at, because we have to protect them and advocate for them during this entire process. Is two of those is how do we create accesses? How do we become more efficient in healthcare to ensure that patients can get to us timely and get from us what they need and want? And how do we leverage technology to do that? And so two of those domains are centered around those two things. And so strategically, we are looking at that. And then operationally, as I spoke before, is how can we utilize it to create capacity for our providers to see more, but then to also make sure that they have work-life balance, right? That we don't want them 3-4 hours after their shifts documenting information and or taking away from bedside care. The worst part about care sometimes is we're tied to a computer and our backs are to the person that we're supposed to be engaging with. And what can we do to engage them in a conversational manner? Because that's the only way we're gonna get out of them what we need to help drive their outcomes and their care forward. And so we've spent time, you know, looking at how do we utilize and leverage that resource in that manner.
And to augment what she's saying, that's something in the business world that we're looking at, and we develop our own. We're looking at processes that our employees who are insurance professionals, we want them client facing. We don't want them behind a computer checking this number against that number. So we're working closely with our in-house developers, and you know, like we have a meeting this afternoon. This process is tedious, it's a time suck. My staff absolutely despises doing it. You know, what can you do to help us? And those are the kind of processes that I can go to a potential employee and say, you don't have to do this menial kind of thing. The opportunity you have with our company is going to be client facing, engaging, relationship building. And those are the things that AI, people do business with you, or they come to see a provider because of a relationship. And the more we can embrace AI to free up our professionals to pay them to do what they do best, the better off we are economically and staffing wise and work-life balance.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I was wondering, obviously you're talking about it, just your experience with making sure that the life of your employees is, you know, prosperous and that they enjoy coming to work. What are some of those pain points or maybe solutions that they've brought to the table for all of you where they see a solution or the problem that they think they can be solved with AI? What have been some of those big moments for you guys that you guys have already seen? People maybe say, hey, can I use ChatGPT to help me with this?
Well, and we don't use ChatGPT, but I have a live example right now. I have a new employee who's been with us about less than a year, and part of her job is compliance and doing a document. And she is like, there has gotta be, she goes, we get so many of these, they take so much time, everyone is different. So we figured out working with her that part of the problem, because I'd worked with our bot automator on this process, and his first question was, are all of these asks exactly the same? Because then it'll be easy. And I'm like, and I just laughed. I'm like, no, every ask is dependent on the client that's doing the asking. So to reverse engineer it, it's like, okay, employee, you know, what part of this is hard? And then me going to IT saying, instead of taking that information, let's develop okay, employee, when you need this certificate of insurance, click on this link and fill out these forms. So if we direct what information's coming in, and they're actually having another meeting to kind of fine tune and develop that this afternoon. So we encourage and embrace our employees to do those kinds of things.
We have a committee of frontline staff, and so what they have shared is what can we leverage to create better workflows, right? And how can we remove steps to a printer even, right? To make things more accessible, and then how do we use that information and embed it automatically as opposed to me repeating it 10 times before it gets into an electronic health record, how many touch points? And so we're always doing surveys with our IT department about touch points and steps and things like that. So I think AI is gonna help us along the way, and we're just on the cutting edge. There are some federal and state laws that prohibit how you use it. One of the federal laws indicate that a human being in healthcare has to validate the information before it flows into the patient record. And then we have to protect that through HIPAA. Everything moves into a cloud, and so we have to make sure that we have BAAs in place to protect patient information that live in these spaces before it's slurped up into, the patient records and things like that. So we do create spaces and forums so that they can share that information so that they're engaged. We have to.
I'm curious too, what does that process look like right now in your school system?
As far as which part?
The transition in terms of AI implementation and automation and
I was thinking of that as they've all been talking. There's so many different divisions. So yes, we're in the business of kids, but you have food service, you have operations, you have bus drivers, you have all these different groups that have to come together, and everybody has a aha, good idea. Board policy still states that we have to do quite a few things at board meetings. A 5-member board still has to vote on everything. They're getting tools at the board conferences too, so everybody wants these big ideas, but it still all has to be vetted through the board. And also the state legislator also guides some things for us, just because that's part of our accountability at the state and federal level.
makes sense.
Question. I have a question. Really quickly, as much as we're embracing AI now, how are your companies also having, in the unlikely event that AI crashes, what are your safety nets that are implemented in your companies? Even though it's unlikely, but still, what are the safety nets you have?
I know for us, we do a lot of training on something called downtime. And so we still have to rely on humans during these downtimes. We've heard of the nightmares with electronic health records or systems going down and then you're paralyzed, whether that's a car, an auto shop, or another company. We rely so heavily on computers. We actually train and drill on if we don't have technology, what does that look like? That is a struggle, I will tell you. So for anyone entering into the workforce that's always used a computer to put a pen in your hand and to have to document information and straight from memory could be challenging. But you do always have to go, we'll call old school, and that is pen and paper. So that's what we do.
Anybody else wanna add to that? Okay,
We do a lot of backup, offsite, onsite, and again, we never rely solely on AI. So that's where our when we're looking to add staff or we're looking for our next generation of employee, the content matter is gonna be important. They're gonna have to know what we do and what they're doing and not solely rely on AI.
I would say it has been hard to automate things with AI, and so it's not embedded in your process where you're relying on it in too many areas at this point.
one of the things we're talking a lot about right now with our new strategic plan and, the implementation and the integration of, professional development and career-focused, planning throughout the curriculum. When you look at it from a preparatory standpoint for your respective industries, what are some of the things you would like to see our students doing to prepare themselves to fully leverage these tools in an effective way within your industry, given the limitations and the other, factors that we've discussed so far?
know for us, we have a couple of ways. So with our teachers, we want them to still teach, but how can you use AI to perhaps help you with lesson development? Common core curriculum, so if I'm taking English 9 on this end of the building, how do I know that this group is also getting it? So, throw away the paper that you had, rebuild, and sometimes people are afraid to do something new, but if you can show them, that's why the PD is so important. Show them, we have something called Leadership Institute where we bring in elementary, secondary, early learning, and they can work together and they bring a team from their school. Today, we're gonna show you a tool that's gonna help you develop lesson plans. Most of the time, we see relief because it wasn't that scary, but it also helped me because it came up with all these other great ideas that we can utilize. So, we're trying to teach people to not be afraid to embrace it. I think our new folks that are coming into the workforce, you're not afraid of it because you've lived with it pretty much your whole life in some kind of way. And so as you're joining these organizations, feel comfortable. Don't feel like you're the new kid all the time and you can't speak up or this is the way things are done. We're gonna get swept up in it if we don't embrace it. And so I've got a few more years in the field, so I'll be okay. I can manage it. I got a young kid. But for some folks that just will not accept the change, they're going to struggle to remain successful in the career. And so when you come in with those new ideas during your internships or whatever it is, take time to meet with some folks that you think might be movers or shakers and just, don't tell them this is the way it needs to be done, but offer some suggestions or show, hey, I learned this in class because we're learning. It's a two-way street. And I think that's really, really gonna be important for us. I used to teach computer science, and for those of you that are into that field, there'd be a new book out every week, a new upgrade, a new something. Well, yeah, I went to school for it 20 years ago, but I don't know how to use active server pages. See, even all that stuff is outdated, but as quickly as it came, I'd be next to the kids. Now show me how to do that. And they would show, so you have to be okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, you're not going to be able to survive as we continue to embrace all of this AI. So just work together.
I absolutely agree. And I would say for students, what you could work on right now, think about if you join an organization as if you owned it, as if you were a direct stakeholder. Because if you're able to start thinking systems-wise, just like you were saying, even just reducing the steps to the printer, you will be very valuable. And if you're able to say, well, if this reduces time here, then it reduces time here. And then work on your communication, your short communication that delivers a powerful idea in a very limited amount of time. Those things can make you go really far.
I'll give a plug to the instructors or the faculty to say that, all those papers the students have to write and you have to validate, you have to research, are they qualitative, quantitative? Am I saying those right now? Is that comes into play for situations like this. And so you always want to validate and you want to confirm that information before pushing it forward. And so the skills that you're learning are going to be absolutely instrumental in that human touch point for that information. And so I know I struggle with myself, I'm like, I don't know if it's qualitative or quantitative, it's one of the two. But anyway, I didn't realize how much it would benefit me until I got further and further into my career and I saw how valuable that was. So bring that with you.
AI would be able to explain one of those.
That's true, yeah, I'll do that afterwards.
Yeah, and another thing I would say, these seem like simple things, but really do your best to really understand the culture of the organization that you're going to be in. Because they do that up front. They are telling you, here's the type of organization that we are. And really kind of understand what that culture is. And I'll give you one example at Hamilton Center. One of the things about our culture is don't step over the little things. And so the words that you use, how you communicate with others, and how you demonstrate that you actually can back your ideas is important. And so we love your ideas, but how you are able to communicate it and not step over the little things is really important to the culture of our organization.
I was just gonna add that with, I'm part of the operations team. And, Procore's got the AI in it and you gotta write these agents. I grabbed the youngest guy on my team and I said, okay, here's an agent course. Learn how to write agents. So I mean, it's the same thing as creating an agent in ChatGPT. It's the same thing as Procore. He's like, oh, I've done this before. So, he is furthering his career by knowing how to write those agents to make it specific to our process. So he's working on, building out agents that work on how we work and making it to where to go, get the information we need, can it go read the manual for, So that's another way that you guys could help, your resume is if you know how to write agents for your AI, if you can do it in ChatGPT, and create those things, that is something people are gonna be, looking for across, I think, all, workplaces of, can you help, you bring your company up, further by writing those agents that work for your processes.
And they even have some AI platforms that are designed to make it easier for you to develop an agent, to create an agent, like Sintra, Sintra. If you check that out, it would be easier for like a novice to create an agent using something like that as opposed to creating it maybe from scratch on like a ChatGPT or whatever.
I had two things I wanted to add in here. One is if you're at all related or connected to an area that's doing programming, it's probably the easiest time right now to learn how to do it. So I'm working with data and Excel, Power BI, and I just have ChatGPT do all the programming for me. I picked up how to do SQL programming instantly. I still don't know how to do it, but it does it for me.
Yeah.
Most people won't need to know how to do that, but if you're near that area, it's incredibly easy. So this is the easiest time to learn that. The other thing I would say is, most entry-level employees, they're gonna put you in a position and start giving you the tools to learn your domain. Here's how you do the area that we put you in. And you're gonna be sitting next to all these other departments. And it's in your interest over time to learn, how am I interacting with purchasing, or how am I interacting with HR over here? And so you wanna learn those departments. ChatGPT is great at it. If you wanna do research, if you want I wanna understand the basics of how this works next to me, entry level, give me what I need to know. It's an incredible learning tool. And so get used to doing that in school, learning, you're just jumping into areas that you really shouldn't need to know how to do it. It's a great tool for it.
Anything else? Questions? Before we do, we're gonna do a little, it's kind of a speed round here in just a second. But any other questions from you all? What do you, what have you been thinking about or worried about even as it pertains to AI? Because I know some of you have those kinds of thoughts and concerns, because I know some of you share them with me. What do you think? Anything? Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
I would say, since I'm a grad student in computer science, I would say my biggest fear and concern is, for example, entry-level roles now, any AI can code a junior level developers. They can build websites, they can make applications now. So that comes to, what am I supposed to diversify myself in? Because if my field is kind of being overrun with AI, because AI makes it easier, how do I branch out and make myself more marketable to employers when looking for a job?
It's a great question.
Can I build off of that?
Sure.
So several of you have talked about one of the important things is being able to validate what the material that AI creates. And you've talked about basic research can help, learning how to build agents can help, communication can help. But I'll use the example that someone used about law. 10 years from now, junior lawyers will no longer be doing the work of going into law books. That'll all be AI, but they'll now be middle tier, senior people who used to be the ones checking the junior people. Eventually, you'll get to the point where the senior people are the people who got the last ones who did that, and there's nobody below doing the hard work. Who then is validating at the lower level? So that entry level job, where do you get that experience? Or you mentioned like getting into like the hard 5-hour project where you actually have to wrestle with it. So I think that's sort of a similar side to this. So if you're trying to build your portfolio for a job, how do you differentiate yourself if your skills are being pushed by AI?
The skill again that sets you apart is, can you review the work? Can you put in quality? Can you make sure it's right? And that's how you're gonna distinguish yourself.
And to kind of go to the reverse flow on your question is, what do we do when all these junior people who did the research and became, you know, middle tier attorney, what are we gonna do when the person who went from the ground up is gone and nobody's learned those things? Who's gonna defend you in court? Right? So you know, it's not the Terminator, but again, you can use it as a tool, but it's not going to, you can't rely on it. And there's no way around some of those digging, looking up yourself, reading, studying. I mean, you can use it to augment, you can use it as a starting point. You can use it to do your, you know, put your data in Excel or copy something from a PDF into an Excel. You can train it to do all those things, but you can't, it doesn't know why it's spitting it out for you, or it doesn't know what it's spitting out, why you're using it.
You can't make the decisions.
No.
You need that human element to make those decisions. Take the information it's given, now let me make my decision.
Separate yourself, you have to remember that it's only a tool, right?
Exactly.
That's all it is, it's not the Bible, it's a tool, and you still, to differentiate yourself as a young employee, young professional, you still gotta put in the hard work, right? Eventually, if all you do is rely on AI, you will be found out, and you will cap out your career.
And in the instances where you were asking, what do you do if everything crashes? You need to know what you're doing, and you can't avoid the study, avoid the reading, avoid the research, avoid the knowledge of the content.
I think it's almost an intentional force back into making sure you understand what the foundation is of whatever industry or sector that you're in, is to go back to those basics and make sure that you're tapping into that constantly to make sure that they're connected to the critical thinking, the foundation of it. And to your point, which was my elevator pitch, is it's a tool in the toolbox, right? We have all these other skills, we're all going to school, we're all professionally advancing, and we have this arsenal full of things that we can use to help us grow and to engage with the workforce and do our jobs, but it's a tool right now. Now, in 10 years, maybe it'll be a bigger tool, but it's still just a tool, so.
As a teacher, I've often told my students and even some of my colleagues that the best way to get somebody to fully understand any concept or subject or anything else is to make them teach it. And if we look at it through the lens of AI, again, AI is gonna give you a lot of good things to work with. But you then, going through what that AI gave you, again, the vetting process, right? To ensure that you fully understand it and know how to best explain it to everybody else, that's a whole different level of, processing. So, good. Any other questions?
Last question, sorry, last question. Okay, so now we've spoken about the skills that are needed. I think concern mostly for students here, as we that really stands out to us is now most roles require so many years of experience, and how do I get those years in such a short amount of time? Because entry level roles now don't really exist as much because everything's more mid-tier to senior level roles that are mostly available in the market. So now with us as graduate students or students about to graduate, how do we keep up and be able to fill in those roles that are available there?
So here's one thing I would say, a lot of the job market is based on who you know. And so the skill that you have to develop is getting great at that. So like the more types of forums that you go to, that you follow up, people hear you speak, and like, hey, that guy, you need to follow up. So people that are showing you that they're demonstrating an interest in you, follow through and follow up with those individuals, because those are the types of skills that are gonna take you far in any marketplace, whether you have AI or not. And even as a computer science major, right, there are other things that you can do just to convey to people that you are that and much more.
I think the other side of it too is don't be afraid to reach out and just ask for an opportunity to job shadow in something you're not comfortable with or that you feel excited about or you're unsure about. That is the best way to kind of expose yourself to something different, but it's great from a resume perspective because you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you're staring down, this is where I really wanna go, and you feel like you've nailed it all the way and you're like, I don't understand why they're not hiring me directly into a management or a senior level position because I've nailed it through school and internships and externships, is branch out and do something odd. That's the question that we always ask, like, why did you, flip to this? What did you learn from that? And then I think the other vulnerable piece is be willing to open yourself up to learn more by going back and looking at what you failed at so that you can share and teach and motivate others to move forward. Being a mentor looks great on a resume. And what are you doing to pay it forward?
And again, in just the class that we were talking to this morning, that's what we said from a resume builder. Take every opportunity. If you have a passion for something, volunteer. Volunteer, use your skill set, apply it there. All of that is something that you can put on a resume that is experience. It may not be work experience, but it's practical application of your skill.
This is a really good segue to our final speed round because we've only got a couple minutes left. So the last thing I want to ask you all to do, and this time we'll start on the other side. The last thing I want you to tell us, and it can be a cautionary ethical consideration, it can be a strategy, it can be a tool. What is the one thing you would like for us to take away today in terms of, again, as it pertains to AI, an ethical consideration, a tool, a resource, a strategy, an approach, whatever?
I would say if you haven't already really gotten into AI, you really do need to embrace it. As this gentleman said, you could even use ChatGPT to tell you how is AI used in my career. What are the benefits? What are the top 2 things that are, and that way it helps you narrow it down a little bit so that if you're not in the game, you at least have a starting point. And then the other piece that is critical for us in the field of education is you have to be ethical. There's just a non-negotiable with that. If you're, some people will do the shortcut, and I believe this gentleman said you're gonna take yourself out of the game. Just always make good choices, because AI can be your friend, but also AI tracks everything that you do. So you wanna make sure that, it's just the fact, I mean, my husband, we have an Alexa at home, cause I like it in the kitchen, Echo, I like it in the kitchen, and he unplugs it, he doesn't even want it on. He don't want him hearing anything, seeing anything, doing anything. I'm like, I'm just trying to watch Netflix, and he's like, that thing is watching everything we do. It's picking it up. I came in the other day and it's heard you say something, and it said, oh, by the way, this is happening. And so just keep those things in mind. I think because you younger people are native to it, it's always been there, but know that it's always there at the same time.
Is it fair for me to just say ditto?
That's fair. We only
I know,
got a couple minutes left, so.
We have 2 minutes, yeah. Ditto, no, to piggyback on that, just real quick is the fact, again, just go back to being comfortable, nimble, and like I said before, it is a tool to use, get comfortable with it, validate it, know your standards and your governance around it, your state laws even, it may be different than federal laws. And one will precede the other sometimes depending the heaviness of it. So any industry that you're going into, make sure that you're very familiar with what those are when you're doing those applications. Nan told me right before this, she said, our HR person said, look, you may want to share with them in the state of Illinois, we're not allowed to use AI solely in our recruitment platform. We have to make sure that from a screening perspective of all applications, there has to be a human screening those because of the discrimination and or bias that can be seen in AI screening out applicants for jobs. And so a human being has to screen out applicants. So it's things like that that you have to familiarize yourself with. It sounds like an easy button to push, but you have to always be cognizant of the governance and the rules and the regs around that, so.
Right.
And ditto.
Ditto. And my only other takeaway is use it as a tool, don't lose your brain. And know the content, be comfortable with AI, understand how to use it efficiently as an efficient tool. But don't, my concern is, like I said, in the attorney, it doesn't take the place of intelligence and thought and relationships. And don't lose sight of that.
I would say if you're not at all comfortable with using it right now, hide your Chrome browser on your phone and put ChatGPT and make yourself go there first. Just ask questions. That's the quickest way to get used to using it on a normal day. The other thing is if you really wanna dig in and be at the forefront, I think agentic AI is gonna be there at some point, but it's not yet, but keep an eye on it, cause there's some really neat opportunities that will come into the line soon.
I would challenge you, when we think about AI as a tool, start with a blueprint. You don't start using a tool unless you know what kind of building you're gonna make. So have a very clear understanding of what the KPIs are, what exactly needs to be created. And then build whatever you need to do within ChatGPT. So, or whatever AI.
Ditto, but my ad would be aware of the confidentiality. If you're using ChatGPT, that's going out and anybody can see it. So be aware of what you're using it for and make sure that, whatever the AI platform you're using, make sure that you know where it's going and what could be potentially out there and, and keeping that confidentiality of your company's information safe, that it's not, that's why, I don't think our company's going to allow ChatGPT as, because of that security issue. But it's just something to be aware of when you're using the AI. Don't release any information out there that your company doesn't want to go out there.
Right.
Yeah, I think I would say two things. Your brain is the most powerful tool that you have. And then secondly is anything you can do to become fluent in the mistakes that all the different AI platforms already make off the bat. That's gonna happen. So,
Good. Awesome. How about a quick round of applause for our we'll continue to do more of these, so keep looking for us. We want to make sure our students are prepared to meet the demands of the workforce in every way. And feel free to stick around and talk to our panelists, our employers, if you've got time. Otherwise, have a great day and thanks for joining us.
hey,
I'm good.
all right. Hey, I learned a lot. Hey.